What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is your boy Frankie Bones, and in today's video we are going to be kicking off stage 3 of the Call of Duty League cycle. We're going to be previewing the week 1 matchups, as well as reviewing, first of all of the roster changes that have happened during the short break between Major 2 and Major 3. A lot of teams looking to make changes as they push for champs at the end of the year. And a few interesting changes as well. Some teams not making moves, some making surprising moves. But without further ado, we'll hop right into the roster changes. So to start things off, definitely the biggest move that we'll be talking about, and obviously being a Optic fan, is the surprising move of moving Illy to the bench in order to pick up Dan Ghosty from Challengers. Now, they did have a strong placement in Major 2. They ended up getting top 4, but there were some mistakes that the team was making that sort of resulted in this finish, and not really allowing them to potentially finish any higher than that. But I would say some of us may have sort of seen this coming. Illy hasn't been performing maybe up to his standard, and as well as the numbers sort of aren't there, and I'm just not sure if he's making as much of an impact on the team this year as in previous years past. Obviously, there were some conversations going on in the offseason with the drama of potentially not bringing back Dashy and Illy. Really just an odd scenario, but ultimately we see it play out with Dan Ghosty coming in for the squad. Now, Dan, it'll be interesting. He'll be in the main AR role, but I believe he'll also be the guy that's pulling out the sub. So, sort of don't like to do main versus flex sort of debate. I think everybody really needs to be able to use both weapons. A lot of people, obviously, as you see watching the gameplay, are picking up weapons off guys' bodies, things like that. But he's the first amateur player to be picked up to Optic Gaming in their history. So obviously a big move. He's been frying in Challengers, and he won the most recent cup. And we'll talk about some of his teammates as well later on. He does run the sniper, which will be big. We're not sure if he'll be running it during matches, but as well, I think he'll help being an IGL for this team. We heard that it was Shotzzy sort of up to this point, and I think that'll sort of free him up on the map and be able to make a bigger impact on the team. Moving on to some other changes on the heels of retirement from Zinni. Pretty, assumed move here. We have Ben Beans moving into the starting lineup. He's been on the Boston Academy team, been a really sort of touted young player over the past few years, known as the EU Dashy, but he runs the big stick and search, which I think will be big for them, help free up Vivid, and hopefully fix some of the ice issues that they've been running into, but also a lot of firepower in the respawns as well to pair up with Big Wake. So pretty interesting news here out of Florida. They've obviously been making some roster changes, which myself and a lot of other people in the community have really been questioning. Sort of just some odd moves. When they sent Brack to the bench, they picked up Dave Patty. But now we sort of see this team coming around and rounding a little bit more into shape and give themselves a chance to actually be a formidable team in this league and make a push for the bottom end of Challengers. Again, the top 8 of 12 teams make Challengers, and sort of a dogfight at the bottom for right now. So the rumors that have been going around, they have already announced that they will be bringing back Brack into the starting roster, which in my opinion I think is just a no-brainer. I think he was sort of one of their best players, and they really messed up the Mojo there. They sent Vickle to the bench, so they'll keep him on their roster for the time being as a sub. And as well, they dropped Dave Patty from their roster. He's a free agent now. Not really sure exactly where he would fit else in the league. He was the Florida Mutineers bench player, but Just not really sure where his opportunities might be outside of challengers, so I think he'll go back down there to compete, stay warm, and stay ready for a potential spot to open up. But we have seen 2 leaks about what the roster is going to be, and I'll pull those up on screen for you guys. The first, the 2 rumored players joining the roster are Fellow, who's been a professional in the past and has a lot of success in challengers since then, as well as Capsule, who had a short stint on the Los Angeles Thieves during the last stage when Kenny was dealing with some sicknesses and wasn't playing at his best at the time and got a chance to rest, come back, and obviously they made a very strong push at the major. So these leaks pretty interesting. I'll show them on screen for you guys. The first one is Tyler Fellow being in a picture at the Florida Mutineers camp. I think that this is a great move for them. He's had a lot of success. I think he might be able to establish a better culture there, which is something that Major Maniac was talking a little bit about when he was dropped. And as well, even earlier today, I'm recording this on Tuesday. Wanted to record it a little bit later, but running short on time here as I head up to my vacation that we're going on later this weekend. And Capsule was leaked during Havoc. I think he was doing 1v1 chows on Twitter, or on Twitch rather, and he sort of leaked it by reading the chat. Tried to walk it back, but obviously we know that doesn't work. So that looks like the starting roster for Florida. Moving on now to the Vegas Legion. We've seen over the past few days that ProLoot had removed from his bio Vegas Legion, as well as TJ, which was pretty interesting. Thought maybe the rumors were that they were looking to make a 2-man change, so changing up both of their submachine gun players. But today we actually found out. I'm glad I waited to record this video sort of as late as possible. But ultimately, they have announced that they will be adding 2 Real to their roster. Definitely a pretty controversial pickup. He didn't really look great last year when he played in Vanguard, and not really sure exactly how this is going to work. He obviously has a connection with Clayster, who definitely is one of the more verbal captains of their team alongside Donnie Temp. So we'll see how this plays out. TJ will be staying on. Great S&D player, so we'll see if that will help them as their backbone mode as they look to improve in the respawn. And just a couple of quick notes, some other teams that did not make moves and are going to be sticking. No move from London. Really just not sure what their direction is going to be. Maybe they'll announce something over the next 2 days or throughout the Stage 3 qualifiers, but for now, no move from them. Seattle has came out and stated that they will not be making a change and they will be sticking with the same roster. I think that they can definitely make it work, but just absolutely negative ice in the S&D right now. They have a lot to figure out, but I think they like the group that they have, and hard not to blame them at the same time as well for sticking after having won a major last year. And the last one is the Los Angeles Guerrillas will be staying with their team. I think this makes a ton of sense. Obviously, they are a newer roster, just coming together at the beginning of the Stage 2 cycle. So I think it makes sense for them to stick it out, but every other team is going to be sticking. Let me know what you guys think of these roster moves down below as we hop over to our Stage 3 qualifying Week 1 matchups. Alright, so as we look here at the schedule, I apologize for not doing graphics for all of these matchups every week. Sort of just takes a lot of time, and I think I'm going to reserve that for the major tournaments in particular. Can definitely put more effort into those videos as well to make it extra special for the major tournaments. But right now, I think it just makes sense to run through these a lot quicker and get us on our way here as we get ready for another great weekend of Call of Duty. So starting on Friday, the first matchup, we have the Los Angeles Thieves going up against the Vegas Legion. I have this one in a 3-1 to LAT. Not really sure what Vegas will look like. LAT stays hot heading into Stage 3. For the next matchup, we have the Minnesota Rocker going up against the New York Subliners. I have this one going in the fashion of a 3-2 to the New York Subliners. Rocker have looked really great, but I think that NYSL has definitely been grinding. Try and make a strong performance here in the Major 3 cycle and get back to top form like we've seen throughout the first couple months of the season. Finally, to round out the day, we have the Toronto Ultra going up against the new look Boston Breach. I actually, in a surprise, have this one going 3-2 to Boston. Yes, that's right. I said Boston is going to win a Game 5. I think that sort of going to be a honeymoon sort of thing. I think the Big Wake and Beans have a ton of firepower from the AR line. I think the pacing might be a little bit better among the subs. I think that they're going to be able to ice up in a Game 5 search. Now, as we move on to Saturday, we have 4 matchups, but for the first one, we have the Boston Breach going up against the London Royal Ravens. I have this one going 3-0 to Boston. Not too much to say here. For the following matchup, we have the Atlanta FaZe going up against the Florida Mutineers. Again, not much to say here. Not really sure what this Florida team will look like. I'll give this one to FaZe in a 3-0 fashion. A very, very anticipated matchup, obviously for me and for a lot of other people out there. We have Optic Texas going up against the Los Angeles Guerrillas. I'll spot LAG a map in this one, but I'll have it going to Optic in a 3-1 fashion. I like the Ghosty pickup. Been watching him play in 8s, watching back on some of his challenger moments. I like the move. I think that it'll take a little bit of time for this team to gel, heading up to their home major in Major 3, but give this one to Optic in a 3-1. And to round out our Saturday, we have the Seattle Surge going up against the Minnesota Rocker. I have this one going way of the Rocker in a 3-2 fashion. I'm just not really sure how much better you can truly get at a game mode like Search and Destroy in this game in such a short amount of time. I think that they will get better. I think they're going to work on it throughout this stage and definitely progress heading up to the major and beyond. But, Search and Destroy just sort of is fundamentally dictated by how this game plays, and I just don't think that really many of these players, if any at all, are really wired towards S&D outside of maybe accuracy. But, Lamar's got the ice, but not going to have enough ice in this Game 5, so we'll give it to Minnesota. And finally, on Sunday, we have 3 more matchups. Pretty interesting ones, actually, as we look through. But to start us off, we have the Florida Mutineers going up against the New York Subliners. I have this one in a 3-0 to New York. I know there's a fair amount of 3-0s here on my predictions, but I really just think that Florida will take some time. I think their roster is better, but I'm just really not sure how high their ceiling is. They did make some good moves and pickups. I think that Tyler Fellow will be a good pickup as well as Capsule, but in addition to bringing back into the lineup as well. But I'll give this one to a 3-0 New York. Again, they're looking to make their stamp and get back on top of the tier list. For our second match on Sunday, we have the Vegas Legion going up against the Toronto Ultra. Again, this one's just going to be another 3-0. Not a massive fan of the pickup of Too Real, to be honest. There were rumors they were also looking to pick up Kremp. But the only issue that I think probably prevented this, historically Vegas Legion and previously Paris Legion were only giving people the minimum. There would have had to be a buyout agreement between the Vegas Legion and the Boston Breach because Kremp is on the Boston Breach Academy team. I think that would have been a much better pickup, a lot more firepower, and he's overall just looked a lot better. Too Real has looked good, but I will say I'm definitely going to knock him for his performances last year in Vanguard, but we'll see if he can turn it around. But I'll give this one in a 3-0 fashion to Toronto. And finally, to close out our first weekend of matchups, we end with a banger. We have the Los Angeles Thieves going up against the Atlanta FaZe. This is a rematch of the Grand Finals from Major 2. So I think this is probably the most anticipated matchup of the weekend. Some of them are a little bit lopsided this weekend, but some of them are pretty good as well. Minnesota Rocker versus New York. We have, the new look Optic Texas team. A lot of different storylines, a lot of new players coming in as well. But, in the end, I'm going to give this one in a 3-1 fashion to the Atlanta FaZe. I think they continue to look really strong in this stage. They're now, I think, becoming really consistent in terms of their strategies, their map picks. Their map pool is getting much larger. Their S&D has continued to look really strong on the back of a BZ. And with Celium sort of coming on this season, starting to get a lot better. We're starting to see those 1.2s, 1.3s out of them. Just going to be a really tough team to beat. I think that, we're going to be really looking forward to this matchup throughout the year, because I think they match up very well, and I think that Los Angeles Thieves definitely caught fire in the tournament, but I think as well that they're definitely a top 4 team. If not top 2, I'd probably put them at 2, right behind FaZe. But in this matchup here in the first weekend, I would give this one to the Atlanta FaZe. But that's going to do it for our matchups for this first week of the Stage 3 qualifying cycle. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think, what matchups you guys might disagree with. You guys can also let me know what you guys think of some of the pickups by certain teams, what you guys think of Dan Ghosty. Obviously, we'll have to look back on this, at the end of the season to see how he's performing, but I think that a lot of the moves made by teams were pretty good. Some of them just sort of made sense, obviously, but to wrap things up for our video today, also wanted to talk to you guys about my breaking point team that I'm going to be putting together for the Major 3 cycle. So here, as you can see, here are some of the top performers from the last major. So I do know that a lot of it has to do with team performance, as well as the overall slaying numbers, KD, traditional numbers like that. But obviously you can see a BZ absolutely fried. Had over 100 points over the closest person, which was Afro. And obviously the Minnesota Rocker played pretty well as well. With the Atlanta FaZe, we see some LAT guys up top. And then obviously Scrappy, Dashy, guys that just always fry like that. Talking about my Major 2 roster, definitely pretty interesting. They ended up substituting players in for those that were either benched or released from their team. So I did have Scump on my team, unfortunately, but obviously Dashy was able to pick up the slack and play really well throughout the major. The other thing was that I did have Brack on my team. He played pretty well the first weekend and was dropped. So I got the Dave Patty subbed in, which I think might have done me in, to be honest. Also had Shotzi, who played pretty well. And I had Octane as well, who did play pretty well. Was in the top 50%, which I guess is good. But hopefully looking for a stronger result here in our next team for the Major 3 cycle. So, what I'm going to do for my team, also, I'll pull up a quick graphic as well for you guys of my team from Major 2, just so you guys can see the point breakdown. So, Dashy again got almost 530. Shotzi got around 400. Octane just about 600. But Dave Patty just really, really tanked, my overall team, I think, only putting up a stinker with 27.3. Brack was decently expensive as well, so definitely pretty tough to have to substitute in the paddle. But we'll move on, and I will show you guys my roster for Major 3, which I think was pretty interesting. Still trying to figure out exactly, what's the best way to construct the roster. I think a lot of people have a lot of those high-priced players. There were some pretty good $4 players as well. But for this major, I went with Shotzi for $7. Think, again, he'll continue to fry. Think he'll round into form a little bit more with Dan Ghosty as well joining the team. The tempo with him and Hook will be a lot better. I think Hook will take a step up as well. But obviously you have to throw in a member of the Green Wall. Next, I have a duo of players from the Boston Breach. Picked up Nero for $7 and Beans for $6. I think that Beans obviously has big slang potential. Definitely want to take the risk on him at $6, especially compared to some of the other players at the price point. I also wanted to pick up Nero because he's been playing a lot better and a lot more consistent, I think, in the Major 2 cycle. Played pretty well at the Major. He was frying. So I think that with him and Vivid being a little bit more free as a sub-duo, I think he'll continue to fry, and I liked him at $7 as well. And for my last pick, I'm going to go with Havoc at $5. I think that this Florida team will be a lot stronger in this cycle. I think that bringing in Tyler Fellow will bring in a lot more of, I guess you could say, structure to this team. I like adding in Capsule as well to pair up with Havoc in the sub-duo. Obviously, he's a very strong search and destroy player, but I think he'll bounce back in the respawns in a little bit. And I think that for $5 is a pretty good offer. But again, I appreciate all the support on the past few videos. Going to be grinding out some ranked play content and stuff from the new update in the near future. So make sure to stay tuned. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys leave a like, as well as, again, comment down below what you guys think. We're also pushing for 100 subscribers and beyond, so please feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. But for now, that's going to do it, guys. This has been your boy Frankie Bones, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.